Thank you, guys. So, again, we're talking Johnny Manziel. We'll enjoy some cake. It's my birthday celebration show. It came to a point where he was just out of control, but the most popular player in the nation. The dude was rolling with Drake. He was rolling with Floyd Mayweather. He was rolling with the biggest names in the game at every party, selling his autographs, making money when he wasn't supposed to. And you learn all this, and you see the story play out in the Untold docuseries on Netflix. Just came out. I enjoyed it. But my biggest takeaway...
Hold on. Before you even get to your biggest takeaway, Ramos, J. Stu, when you hear that stuff, looking back, could there be someone that stopped his behavior, or is it going to happen regardless? When there's a young, cocky athlete, actor, musician, someone that eventually has the story of like they were, they went down the wrong path, could they have been stopped?
Dude, it's who he was. That's what I got out of it.
That's what I think so, too. And I think that you give the wrong person that sense of entitlement and you empower them. The Texas A&M system put them on a pedestal. And you give the wrong person with the wrong personality that, and they're not coming off of that. There's nothing you could do to stop that.
I knew he was in trouble just personally when I watched the NFL draft and they picked him and he walked up on stage and he did this.
The money thing.
And right there I knew that this isn't good.
Yeah, he bought into his hype, his own hype.
When there's a lot of hype, you always wonder, is this person going to lose it or are they going to embrace it? Like, a show doesn't go by where I don't bring up Taylor Swift. Tonight's the last show at SoFi?
Swift Davis, everybody. What's your update?
Swift Davis. Monsi, imagine you had the power of Taylor Swift. You could say, I pick a city and know that you could sell out the football stadium in that city for a week straight. You would have the ability, if you wanted to be the biggest a-hole on earth. Your ego could be out of control.
Right.
But it does seem like Taylor Swift isn't that way.
It does, and I don't think we've heard many
horror stories
about it. I mean, she had that lawsuit against that DJ or a radio host. I can't remember.
That grabbed her butt or something?
That grabbed her butt, but she demanded him for $1. Like, it wasn't a money thing. So it's like clearly she was defending herself and proving a point.
So to back up what Jay Stu's saying, sometimes you give the keys to the wrong person that has all this power and control and like the fame. Some people just can't handle it. And Johnny Manziel, like Ramos said, from the minute he's doing the dollar signs, maybe we should have known this doesn't end well.
His mom did say that she didn't like when he started doing that, but no one was teaching him how to be a responsible young man. Like, hey, dude, don't let your ego be your amigo. Your ego's not your amigo, Tone it down just a little bit. Stay humble. Put the work in. They were just letting him ride on his pure talent because it was working. That's the truth, right? If he's slaying it and he's dominating and he's playing like a man amongst boys, and he wasn't even a big guy. He said 5'11" on a big day, 5'10", but he's dominating all along. Who's going to tell him to switch it up when everything he was doing worked?
That's another
even
thing
when
you
he
guys
was
have in
hungover.
common. 5'10", 5'11" on a big day.
That's
another thing you have in common.
But it does put things in perspective. It's not like he was a super big dude, so he must have had explosive speed and explosive backyard football skills because that's what he was playing.
Yeah.
Backyard football.
Now, this clip I want to play lends itself to a bigger conversation, and Jay Stu sent this earlier this morning. So take a listen to Johnny Football and what happened when the team gave him an iPad full of all the team's plays.
Their GM's calling me going, he doesn't watch tape. I'm like, well, he's got to watch some tape. It's like, EB, his iPad hours is 0.00.
Zero. The playbook, instructions, all on an iPad that he watched 0.0 of.
Because he had this mentality of, I'm just going to sort of wing it. Tommy like wingy. The same way I thought I could roll into college and not study, not put any effort in whatsoever. He thought he could take his natural skill set and just sort of play the way he did in college, and had a rude awakening when he realized he couldn't and wasn't putting any extra effort in, was partying the same ways that he used to, and just realized he couldn't do that at an elite level the same way he had in college. So,
I just don't know. Maybe
very humbling experience.
It reminds me of the old school Raiders Jamarcus Russell story.
Oh, that's a good one too, yeah.
Where they took extreme measures to prove that this guy wasn't doing anything in his power to
Well,
be.
it puts the Kyler Murray stuff in perspective.
Well,
too.
no, I'm going to get to all that. Jamarcus Russell was given tapes that were blank. He comes back and says, I watched them. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I studied the blitz packages. There was nothing on these tapes. But he claims to have read them. He was so confident, I don't need, at the NFL level, to study.
This is a great example of how technology has changed. Jamarcus Russell was given VHS tapes to watch.
Yeah.
They tracked Johnny Manziel's on an iPad tracker. That they could track all of your searches. They could track everything you've done on your iPad, and he didn't do any work on it.
You know, Jay Stu, I saw your text later on. By the way, sorry I didn't respond immediately. I'm flooded with happy birthday messages.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
That's your excuse?
Dude, I got hundreds to get to. So I saw Jay Stu's, and he said, can you imagine they're checking his iPad, his tablets, and they realize he has 0 hours logged when it comes to studying film, which is, by the way, is such a part of the game. Kids on a high school level do this. This guy wasn't watching film on the NFL level. And he goes, what would your iPad say about you if people had access to see what you're looking up and how long you're looking it up? And that's another question that makes you say, oh, geez.
I study things, not the playbook.
Yeah, exactly. As we discovered when we were in Vegas, between the show, between 8 and 10 hours alone on our phone, on social media. Like, how gross is that?
I know we're knocking Johnny Manziel, and I 100% agree with all of you that, not looking at your iPad, not doing the plays, but it does a little bit have to be on the Cleveland Browns as well. I mean, they drafted the guy. Did they not know any of this? That there was no inkling at all that this guy was going to be kind of like, I know that we don't know what a bust, or we don't have any idea if a guy's going to be the best player ever. Tom Brady's an example of that.
Yeah, of course.
In other words, but there has to be some inkling when somebody's like, yeah, he really doesn't.
Dude, Ramos,
do
I
certain
love the
things.
guy because he's always been cool with us.
Sure.
But there was a time where we were like, ooh, Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf. What do we? Ryan Leaf's a good dude, always been kind to us. But there was a time where that was a question. So you don't know how it's going to pan out.
You got to put some blame. There's got to be accountability from everybody in the story, right? Cleveland, from Manziel. It doesn't seem like he took much accountability. He sort of owns his story, but I can't really explain it. You have to watch it really on your own.
Then let me throw it this way. Johnny Manziel, 0.0 minutes on the iPad.
But I was going to say, remember, there was a rule where freshmen couldn't do interviews, so people really didn't know that much about the guy.
He was out there.
He was out there, but he wasn't doing interviews. They didn't know how crazy he was.
Jamarcus Russell, not watching the tapes because they were blank. How could we find it inappropriate then for people to put in a contract? Let's go back a year or so. Kyler Murray, remember like the studying clause? And there was like a racial undertone. There was undertones of like he's a young guy. Take it out. When you hear stories like Manziel and Jamarcus Russell, and you're giving the keys to $1 billion franchise to this guy, like you're our leader, you're the face, you're the quarterback, how could you not have an expectation or demands? We're talking about usually a young 20-something-year-old guy that's being told, you're going to be the guy that makes or breaks this $1 billion franchise.
I think
it's wrong to be like, hey, we want to make sure you're studying?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And I didn't feel that way then. I think, the media ran with a narrative. They sort of positioned that this was like sort of an inappropriate, unheard of sort of thing. But it's trying to hold the young quarterback accountable to make sure he's putting in the work in. I saw no issue with it. You're going to spend that kind of money.
Checking someone's homework.
I never saw it to be that big of an issue.